Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. In this podcast, I'm going to explain why I think work vehicles, cars are going to drop somewhere between 30 and 50% in the next 9 months to a year. So hang on to your cash. I'd like to start out by sharing with you a video that happened on August 26th by the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell. Listen in on this.
Reducing inflation is likely to require a sustained period of below-trend growth. Moreover, there will very likely be some softening of labor market conditions. While higher interest rates, slower growth, and softer labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses. These are the unfortunate costs of reducing inflation. But a failure to restore price stability would mean far greater pain.
So there you have it, right from Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman. We are going to experience some pain to individuals and businesses. And usually he tries to soften what he's saying. This time he's using the word pain. And it's because of the mission that he's trying to follow. The Federal Reserve's mission is to really do two things: to achieve maximum employment and keep prices stable. So keep inflation in check, try to keep it low. And they'll manipulate the markets if they need to make it happen. And notice what's not in the mission, the word recession. If they need to cause a recession to slow down inflation, they will do it. And that's the pain that Jerome Powell is saying. So let's take a look at really the two parts of the mission. The unemployment rate, as you can see in the right-hand corner here, right side corner, it's at the lows. It's at pretty much the historical lows. And with the baby boomers retiring at the rate that they are, it's not going to go up all that much anytime soon, unfortunately, for a lot of businesses. However, if we take a look at CPI, the Consumer Price Index, inflation, we're seeing that it's up 9%. This is what Jerome Powell is talking about. And Jerome Powell knows that the solution to high prices is high prices. So he's willing to increase interest rates, create some pain. Prices will rise with the hope that the economy slows down without a recession. But once again, he will create a recession if he needs to. Because if you really think about it, the interest rate, the Fed funds rate, the rate that the Federal Reserve lends to the banks is only 2.33%. This is also near historical lows. And the expectation is in September, it's going to go up at least 50 basis points, possibly 75 basis points. So could be up to 3%. He's going to continue to raise interest rates to a certain point to slow down the economy, to slow down inflation. Now, he may not be able to increase this as much. And I think that sometimes he's talking the way he's talking because he knows he can't increase interest rates too much because of the almost $32 trillion worth of debt. Every percentage point increase equates to about 320 billion of additional interest that the United States has to pay out. So there's a limitation. He's not going to be able to increase the Fed funds rate like it was in the 1980s. It's just not going to be able to happen. In the 1980s, we had far less debt. So he may be saying the words pain in order to scare people with the hope that that will help, because he probably has 1 to 1.5 percentage points. He might be able to bring this up to 4, possibly 4.5% at most. But expect to see interest rates going up. Now, what's going to happen? We're going to see inflation in what we need, like food and utilities, because that's more of a supply and demand, and deflation in what we own, like houses and vehicles. And the reason why is because they're more affected, they're more quickly affected by interest rates. So expect to see continued inflation and deflation as well. And that the deflation he's hoping will average out the inflation. Unfortunately for us as consumers, we need food. That's going to continue to rise. and we need to pay our utilities in order to have our heat and electricity. And that's going to continue to rise because of the supply and demand in the world right now. Now, as far as the loans for vehicles, as you can see, that's at an all-time high, $1.3 trillion in motor vehicle loans. Never this high ever in the history. As you can see, we're going back to 1945. And notice how quickly it's risen over the years. This is where the easy money was during this past pandemic era. There was a lot of easy, free money. The government was giving out money to everybody. And many people used that money to purchase vehicles because that was no money down. It didn't matter if you had a job. And there were a lot of people who now own vehicles that won't be able to afford them in the very near future. Now, as you can see, the supply and demand of cars and vehicles just increased the average transaction price to $46,000 from about $35,000 in just about a 2-year time frame. It's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. That's the speed at which things went up, and that was because we had the free and easy money. Now, what does that mean? Right now, the monthly payment, average monthly payment for a new car is $677, and for used, $515. Average loan amount, $40,000 for a new car, $28,000 for a used. And the average interest rates are already rising, 4.3 and 8.2. This is going to get more and more expensive over time to pay out. Now, as you can see, delinquencies are low, and they were the lowest during the pandemic when the easy free money was happening. But notice how it's starting to rise. I expect this to go up dramatically in the next year. And this is part of the reason why I believe there's going to be a lot of vehicles out there. There's going to be a lot of delinquencies, and get ready for it. Now, in the last recession, the last major recession back in 2008, it was houses that created a lot of delinquencies. And why not now when housing average price has also skyrocketed? Well, it's because the housing market rules changed during the last recession when the average median sales price was $262,000 and dropped to $205,000. That was a 22% drop, and that created a lot of defaults in the market. They set rules up to avoid that in the future. So even though the housing prices increased dramatically, 33% of home investments are from multi-billion-dollar Wall Street-backed funds. So the rules changed. It's harder for an individual who can't afford to get a house to get a house. So I don't believe the defaults are going to happen in housing. However, I do think that we're going to see prices drop in housing as well. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of why I think the price of vehicles are going to drop at least 30%, it's because when you take a look at some of the leading indicators during the pandemic and just see how they reacted, I think this is a good example of how vehicles will react in the near future. If you recall, lumber and wood products were one of the major increases, this huge spike after the pandemic or during the pandemic, more than doubled in price. And notice how soon after that, within about a year's time, dropped 45%. And even if we look at it today from the peak, dropped 28%. It's reverting back to the mean. These items are all following channels. And we need to consider the fact that there's these trading channels. If you take a look at lumber going back to 2000, you see how it trades within these channels and then all of a sudden takes off during the pandemic. And notice when it drops for the first time, it drops back to the top of the channel to test the channel again, jumps back up, and now coming back down. This, I believe, we're going to see again and again. Another leading indicator was a global container freight. And once again, this huge spike up during after the pandemic all the way to $12,000, and then a drop. And within 12 months, it dropped 40%. But notice again a trading channel here, and the fact that it's reverting back to the mean. And in fact, it went down even further, because the faster the peak up, usually the more it drops. And so now it's dropping even below the trading channel that it was on for a period of time. And I would expect that we're going to see some reverting back to the mean again with the container freight rate. But once again, it went up fast and it's now coming down. Now, if we take a look at used cars and trucks, the index shows that it went from 135 all the way up to 213. So there's a pretty significant growth in less than a year's time. From 135 to 213, what is that? That's a 58% increase in 18 months. That's what happened. Now, I expect that this is going to follow lumber, and this is going to follow shipping rates, and it's going to come back and revert back to the mean. And as you can see with used vehicles, there's a pretty stable trading range for a very long time, back into the 90s. And all of a sudden, boom, it pops up. I expect that it's going to come back down to the trading range somewhere between this 138 and this 160. So if it decreases and falls back into the trading range, it's going to be around 150. There's going to be a 30% drop, and I expect it to be within 9 months. So hold on to your money. Hold on to your money. Hang on to your cash. Just hang on to it, because 9 months to a year, and even 15 months from now, it's going to continue to drop. Now, again, this is not investment advice. This is my opinion, but I feel pretty darn strongly about it. So what did we learn today? The Federal Reserve is warning that Americans, and we're talking about individuals and business owners, will experience some pain. And some of this pain will come in the form of higher interest rates. Expect to start to see more increases in the interest rate beginning in September, at least 50 basis points, possibly as high as 75 basis points. The Federal Reserve will risk a recession to avoid extended inflation. Again, their mission is keep employment high and keep inflation in check, and they will soften the economy. And a lot of times when they're trying to weaken the economy, it ends up in a recession. And that is unfortunately what they'll do. We are going to, because of the increased interest, the assets that we own will deflate. Again, there are assets like the houses, value of houses, and value of vehicles will drop because they are far more affected by increase in interest rate. And unfortunately, we're going to continue to see inflation in the products that we need: food, utilities, gasoline for the car. We're going to continue to see that because that's more of a supply and demand issue. And lastly, there are many signs we are at the peak. I have clients that have bought vehicles at above asking price, sight unseen, and they had to drive to another state just to get another work vehicle to operate their business. I have a family member who's a banker who's telling me that there are a lot of car flippers going on. People are flipping cars like people are flipping houses. Again, another sign that that we're at a peak. And I expect the used vehicle market will drop at least 30% and possibly more, possibly as much as 50% from where it is today in the next 9 months. And I don't think we're going to see the bottom until we get back to the point where we're negotiating with our good friend, the used car salesman. Because right now, there is no negotiation. We are buying at the sticker price. And until we get back down to the bottom, until we see this used car salesman, until we're negotiating, we are not there. Thanks again for listening. If you like this, please subscribe to the channel and share this with a friend. You guys have a great day. Take care.